Hey booktube, I'm the Book Mage, welcome back to my channel. So I am slightly behind on videos and I have like a really bad headache. So I kind of just wanted to do something simple and easy for today. Ignoring the fact that reading a bunch of opinions that I disagree with might stress me out and therefore make my headache worse, but like, we're just gonna pretend like that's not a possibility. So today I'm going to be purposefully offending myself by reading like 1-star reviews of my favourite books. This is by no means an original idea. Like, I feel like pretty much every booktuber does this at some point. That said, I will not have any spoilers in any part of this video. I'm only going to keep to reacting to like reviews that talk sort of generically about the text, but like in ways that I will disagree with. So on the one hand, this might make more sense if you have also read these books, but like, there will be no spoilers here. And also, if you haven't read these books, I haven't even read these reviews yet, but do not listen to them. I don't really know how long this is going to go on for because I've never done a video like this, but I have like about 7-ish books in mind because I like odd numbers and 5 seems not enough. That said, I think the last thing to say before I go into this is like, your opinion of a book is your opinion of a book, as is mine, and like, I'm not going to be putting like the names of the reviewers anywhere in here. Like, their reviews are perfectly valid, even though like they clearly are not going to match my opinion. It's just, that was their experience reading the book. I don't hold that against them. Sometimes people are just wrong. No, but really, it would be really boring if we all had the same opinion of every book ever. So like, this video is just meant for fun. Please don't take it too seriously. That's kind of all I wanted to say before I actually get into this. Okay, so I'm going to start out with my favourite book, and that is Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. I'm not going to hold them up because, as I said, I'm like super checked out for today, so enjoy this nice glossy PNG. This has 14,000 reviews, so I'm guessing we can probably find some spicy 1-stars. The very first 1-star review is gay, but not gay enough. I'm so mad, I can't argue with that one. I mean, they're not wrong. Okay, this next reviewer says they thought it was slow, difficult to read, and they finished it only by sheer determination, not out of pleasure. Congratulations, you have just read Interview with the Vampire. Like, I absolutely get where they're coming from. I feel like, though, not to be kind of thematic, but like, is anything, like, Louis is telling this story, and is anything he does not through sheer determination and not for pleasure? Sorry, this next one is really spicy. It says, it's hard to admit that a movie with Tom Cruise in it could actually be less boring. I mean, I'm here for the Tom Cruise hate. I do think that Interview with the Vampire, the film, is the only film that Tom Cruise has ever been good in, because it's the only time, like, he's playing a character who is not a human, but is pretending to sometimes be a human, and I feel like he was born for that role. I'm not going to read the rest of that review because, like, I feel like it's, like, bordering on troll bait. Okay, I'm skipping over, like, a lot of these 1-star reviews have, things to do with, there is a character in Interview with the Vampire that is, like, they're a vampire, but they're permanently trapped in the body of a child, and, like, a lot of these reviewers are repulsed by that, and the fact that there's kind of, like, they behave kind of like, you know, like a timeless, ageless adult, and not like a 5-year-old. I do kind of have to put out there, this is kind of meant to be like a horror. You're not, I feel like people are so used to like modern sexy vampires that when you get something that's like, yeah, it's meant to unnerve you, it's meant to disgust you, like, this is a horror book, it's meant to have aspects that make you feel like that goes against everything that is like in my human nature. That's kind of the point. Like, you're not meant to look at Claudia and be like, this is a good thing. Like, it's not. It's not. But I feel like that's kind of the point. I mean, if you were grossed out, I think that's kind of the point, but... And, like, basically every other review is just saying, like, it's boring, which... This one just says, if you like reading about vampires complaining, you might like this. And, like, once again, they're not wrong. I feel like a thing that you kind of have to know going into this book is, like, it's not necessarily meant to be a pleasant read. I don't know, like, I get that Louis is sort of a downer as a person, but like, I don't know how else you would tell the book from like the perspective of a severely depressed vampire without it being kind of depressing. I can see why people don't like this book. I just disagree. Okay, moving not so swiftly on, the next book I'm gonna have a look at the reviews for is I guess it's the book that used to also be tied for my favourite book, but is now no longer my favourite book, and that is The Stolen Throne by David Gader. So this is like a video game tie-in book, so like, it's not promising from the start, but it also really does not have a lot of reviews total. Oh, I'm gonna have to fight this person. They said that Dragon Age is their favourite video game franchise of all time, and that this is the worst book they have ever read. It is bland, shallow, and completely pointless as a source of relevant Dragon Age lore. We have to fight. I'm so sorry. Pointless as like the lore, oh. I don't understand how you can be, like, a massive fan of Dragon Age. Fair enough, if you just like, I don't know, like tactical RPGs, then like, fine, maybe a book version is not for you. But also, if you're just talking specifically about the lore, this book sets up kind of everything lore-wise for the setting of the game that ties into specifically like how the sort of like big inciting action that decides like your direction for like the entirety of the video game. It sets up everything that happens in like this first massive battle sequence that's kind of like right at the start of the game. And I feel like knowing like the background and the lore and why certain characters do what they do, because I will say there is a character, it's built up a very, very small amount in the video game why this character does what they do that sort of sets you on this like it makes everything go wrong and everything's crap, and then that's like you, the player, are kind of having to like fix everything and save the world. You know, it's fantasy video game stuff. But like, I feel like the book contextualizes all of that, and in fact, I feel like there is a line in this book that I think completely redefines that like antagonist's motivations, and I think in fact they weren't necessarily entirely his motivations. Do I think that some of them were? Yes. But also I think he may or may not be keeping a promise that he made to like his only friend, which I think on the surface seems like a betrayal. But if you recontextualize it in the frame of having read this book and like everything the characters do in this book, it's kind of like, actually, I agree with him for doing what he did. As the player, no, I don't like it. But having read this book, how are you gonna say that this is like devoid of all useless lore when it's like, it flips everything on its head? If you pay attention, and I don't think they did. I'm gonna move on after I read this one other review which just says, "'Tis the worst book I've ever read in my life." And all I'm gonna say is, like, I know that that's channeling some Morrigan vibes. However, sometimes Morrigan says the opposite of what she's feeling. So that's what I'm gonna take away from that. You can put on a front, but I will see through it. I feel like we should move on from Dragon Age because that took a long time. Maybe I can't rant about Dragon Age, okay? Like, I'm sorry, I'm too salty about it. Okay, I'm gonna look at some reviews for the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Okay, maybe I should have like vetted these beforehand because like these reviews, this is all one-star review. Like, I'm not reading your novel. What is this? It's still going. Oh, it ended. Okay. Okay, this person says they are so mad at this book. It offers nothing more than an LGBTQ young adult romance, which just happens to be set during the Trojan War, which, like, I feel like that is kind of what the book is, though. I feel like you may have missed the premise going in. This person's just talking about their trip to Turkey, so, like, thanks. Again, people are saying this is just a male-male romance cloaked in mythology, and it's like, but that is kind of what it is. Like, that is the book you picked up. It's not meant to be like a one-for-one, beat-for-beat retelling of the Trojan War, because you could literally just go read the Iliad. I feel like this book was meant to focus on the romance and the relationship aspect, and, like, if that's not for you, just don't pick it up. Like, that's what the book is. Basically, every review of this book is an absolute... It's like a novel in itself. They're all so long. So, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to talk about reviews for The Gutter Prayer by Gareth Hanrahan. I gave this book like a high 4 stars, but the series as a whole is like one of my favourite, I think technically still ongoing fantasy series. So this person has said that The Gutter Prayer is completely joyless and horrible. No matter how well written, it's grimmer than grim, darker than dark. I so regret to inform you that this is a grimdark book. What did you expect? It's meant to be grimdark. Also, it's by no means like the grimmest, darkest thing I've ever read. It's a little bit whimsical as well. Like, there is a humour to this book. I would say it's kind of technically more upbeat than Interview with a Vampire. Like, yeah, it's grimdark. Yeah, the world is a horrible, miserable, scary place. But it does still have humour. And, like, there are some really, like, nice moments in this book. They literally go on to say, if that floats your boat, this is a compelling example of a twisty narrative. Why are you giving it 1 star then? You know that this book is good. They said it was well written and a good, compelling example of having a twisty narrative, but they gave it 1 star because they don't like how grimdark this grimdark book is. Logic. Oh no, this one says they couldn't get into it because there were too many fantastic creatures introduced to have a coherent story. I disagree. There's really not that many. I don't think it takes a lot to understand them. So, like, one of the creatures you have in this world, none of these are spoilers, but, like, one of the creatures you have in this world are men who are made out of candle wax. Like, they were living men, and they've had, like, alchemy magic stuff done to them, and now they're basically, like, walking, talking candles. It sounds weird, but it's done really well in the book. What else do you need to know? It's a man who is a candle. This is a mandel. There are like men made out of worms. If I said picture a whole bunch of worms like in the shape of a man in a trench coat, you have it. Some of them is just like, it's a man but with a seagull's head for a head. It's not a lot to take in. I understand that there are some, like there's some weirder creatures like towards the end, which I won't really mention, but at the same time a lot of the other ones are kind of like, they're called ghouls and they live under the city and they like eat the flesh of the dead, but like one of like the three major initial characters, like one of the three main characters is a ghoul, and like you don't really need to know much more other than they eat corpses. Like, it's so easy to take in what they are. It's man who's a candle, man made of worms, this dude eats corpses. Like, it's very minimal. It's not like you're having to learn loads of like weird stuff about them. They don't all look really like fantastical and different. It's not like I'm trying to introduce you to like a whole bestiary. It's like, no, they're all just kind of human for the most part. I mean, they're not, but they are. I still don't know why we have men with seagull heads, but like, I'm 3 books in and I don't know why they exist. Right, okay, this review says they did not get past the prologue because there's nothing so off-putting than reading something in second person. How am I going to tell this person the only part of this book written in second person is the prologue? The rest of the book is just in third person. It's weird, it's interesting, it's different, but honestly, it's so minimal as well, because for the few times that the prologue says, like, you see this or you feel this, it's like, the rest of it is just describing other characters in the scene, and then it ends, and then it's third person for the rest of the book. Oh no, this one just says, the world is too dark and nightmarish. It's grimdark! It's meant to be! I want to read, like, the back of the book so bad. I'm sure it tells you that it's, like, a weird, dark, grimdark kind of world. I'm sure it says, like, dark and all sorts of that, like, on the back of the book. So if you pick this up and you go, oh, actually it's dark, I don't like it, why did you pick it up? Where was the thinking? This person even says the writing style is interesting, and yet how is it a 1-star review? I personally reserve my 1-star reviews for when I despise the book and everything about it and I feel personally offended that it exists. Okay, I'm gonna be controversial. I'm gonna look at reviews for Nevernight by J. Kristoff. Now, I gave this book 5 stars. I love this book. I do think the series goes downhill. I'm also getting like less fond of J. Kristoff as like a person. I will say though, I still think this book slaps. I love this book. Nevernight was fantastic and it was like one of my favorite, I think it was like my favorite book of the year that I read it. I got my friend into it. Like, I have a lot of fond memories about this book and I think it's good. So, that said, I'm interested to know why people hate it. This just says middle-aged white men should not write. Do you know, I do see where they're coming from. I so don't understand people's way of reviewing, because this says this is not a, they've rated it 1 star and the first thing they say is this is not a 1-star book, the world is built competently and the premise is brilliant and the author can dance his way through a story. How is it 1 star? What do your stars count for? So the reason they rated it 1 star is they said it was boring. They spent 4 days trying to get through it and couldn't. At what point is it boring? The opening scenes are definitely not boring. And like, I know some people argued that like it takes a certain amount of time to like get to sort of like the, I guess like the magical school aspect of this book. I don't remember personally ever feeling like it was taking a long time to get to the next part of the book. I didn't think that was like a slog to get through. Even if you did, everything that comes after that point, there's a lot of action in this book. There's a lot of just like, a lot of this book is just like rule for cool stuff, which I'm not against because like that's just the kind of book that it is. It's a very fun series. Oh. This one says, I wish I loved this book as much as J. Kristoff himself loves it. It reads almost like a love letter to himself. This man is utterly and undeniably in love with his own writing. Okay, look, this bit I can't disagree with. So I don't mind the writing style, because I feel like if it's just like a one-off, super over-the-top kind of, I feel like some books have to be written like that. It's a style, it's fine. And I feel like for Nevernight and Nevernight only as a series to have like this flair, it's totally fine. I personally don't have an issue with it because it is written in character. It's not meant to specifically be written from like J. Kristoff's own voice. It's meant to be from like a character sort of telling this story. I don't necessarily think that is always the case because I think J. Kristoff is a bit like that, and I hate that I agree with this, but like, for me it was a positive for the book because like I kind of like that it was a bit like over dramatic and hammed up, and what I will say probably only makes sense to, I guess, like maybe specifically just British alternative people, but like, you know when you go to like an alt bar and there's always that one guy there who's like really talkative and probably has like a trilby and like a cane or something, even though like you're indoors and he doesn't need a cane, and he'll come in and he'll be like, I want to say like constantly talking in like his Reddit voice, where he'll drop in like random bits of archaic language that he clearly doesn't know how to use in context, and speaks like really sort of like grandiose, verbose all the time, and with like an affected accent. That is who J. Christos writing reminds me of. Now, if you've never met that guy at a bar, because let me tell you, in my time I have met so many of these men at bars. If you've never had that experience, like for me reading that, it kind of gave me a chuckle, because I'm like, I know this guy. I've met so many variations of like this one dude, and it is very specifically like an alternative, like either goth or steampunk usually kind of guy, but specifically the kind that are like really into like superior nerd culture. I realise this review is tricking me into like also kind of agreeing with it, but like I liked that part of the book because I'm like, is this book written from the perspective of a guy who's kind of a dickhead? Yeah, but the character telling the story is kind of a dickhead. One review just says, nah, fuck J. Christoph. Which, like, yeah, right? So many of these are DNFs and I just don't think they count. Okay, look, the next one I might also get a little bit defensive over. It is the Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster-Bujold. Now this book, I gave this 5 stars, and the protagonist of this book is my favourite character from any book ever. I know that's high praise. I want to preface by saying I don't think he'll be anybody else's favourite character ever, because he's very much just a guy. He's just a guy. He's just a dude. He doesn't even have like magic powers. He's not like some sort of like dark, like cool. He doesn't have like any. It's a man. It's just a guy. It's just a guy in his 30s. But he's my favourite, so I'm going to be very biased. Or if anyone says anything bad about my baby girl Kazaril, What? Wait, what? How? Wait, it says there are 0 reviews matching your filter. I have to refresh. This has to be a glitch. There's 649 1-star reviews. Unless everyone just agrees with me and like, yeah, you can rate it 1 star, but like no one has a reason, so they're just not writing anything. Like, oh no, okay, it did load some. Okay, so far every single review is the fact that there is an age gap between like Kazaril, the main character, and he's like the tutor to the sister of the heir of the throne, and she's quite young, and she has like she got like a lady in waiting or something who's like 19 years old. So like, yes, there is kind of an age gap there, which I totally get isn't for some people. I personally don't necessarily always mind an age gap romance, and I will say the reason I don't really mind it in this is because at no point is the character ever like actively pursuing this 19-year-old. It's just kind of like, try not to get into spoilers or anything, but it's like, you kind of know that it's like, they're around each other a lot, and obviously she's very pretty, so it's like, yeah, he does like her, but he doesn't like act on it. He's not out there being like, writing her sonnets or like asking her to like court him or anything like this. I kind of gave it a pass for that. So this person thought that the book was supposed to be a combination of political intrigue and fantasy, but it's too heavy on the political intrigue. It seems like an 80-20 mix, and they found the writing to be awkward and clunky. It was difficult to keep track of the enormous number of like characters and titles. I feel like that's the book you signed up for though. Like, if you want to read like a political fantasy, this is one of them. I get that not everyone likes that kind of fantasy where like political intrigue is kind of at like the heart of it, with like fantastical aspects like around that. Yeah, but that's what this book is. It's set out to do that, and it does that well. It's kind of like ordering like a double cheese pizza and being like, yeah, there's too much cheese on this. Maybe you shouldn't have gone for the double cheese. That's what the book is. It can't not be that. And also the writing is clunky. Awkward and clunky? No. Again, I just think it's this person's own fault for not being able to keep track of it's not an enormous number of characters and titles. I don't know what to tell this person. If you don't like political fantasy, don't pick up one that's based on like politics and intrigue. I'm sure it says something like that on the back of the book. I know I go into books blind, and that's on me. I choose to do that. But like, how are you gonna hate a book for being what it's supposed to be? Other people are just saying like, it's boring, it would be more fun to watch the grass grow. Someone else just says, so boring. I don't think it is. I just disagree. I don't think this is a boring book. It has kind of like a slower start to it than like, again, I think these are people that read a lot of like YA fantasy or like very like high octane action packed like baby grimdark fantasy. This isn't that. This is like its own thing. It's like, there are action scenes in there. There's a lot of like very interesting scenes, particularly at the start, and there's kind of like rising stakes throughout, and there are certain events that happen with like well paced, in my opinion. throughout the book. I don't know, and I say that as someone who has like really bad ADHD, and like I need like input all the time into my brain, otherwise I get very bored. I don't see it. I feel like I'm supremely qualified to say that this book is not boring. Okay, the last book I'm gonna look at is The Wolf by Leo Carew, and as you know, I really like this series. I did like a whole video talking about like why I like this series so much, which I intend to do probably for several of the other series I've mentioned like on this list. I still think this book is criminally underrated, so like let's just make that even worse for myself. It does only have 63 one-star reviews, but I think that's just because like it doesn't have a lot of reviews at all. Excuse me? This person says, if you are a fan of military fiction, do not waste your time. The book is in serious need of an editor. It should be about 100 pages shorter, the character development was uneven, the ending was horrible, it was silly. These are fighting words. I think this book is perfect if you like, when you say military fiction, if you sort of like medieval warfare, this book is perfect. This book is so much medieval warfare. It reminds me a lot more of like, actually like a lot of like Greek mythology, where if you have like a lot of lengthy described battle sequences, mix that with like very realistic like medieval warfare fiction. That's what most of this book is. I don't know why you wouldn't want to read this if you're a fan of military fiction. If you like medieval warfare, it's absolutely the book for you. I'm so sorry to this person who thought that the character development was uneven. What do you mean? What do you mean? But I don't know if they mean that characters like suddenly developed and then like they didn't develop in like a straight like line like this, or if different characters develop at different speeds. Because I hate to tell you, that is in fact realistic, and how else do you want it to be? That every single character evolves and grows at the exact same pace, at the exact same time, by the exact same amount? Certain actions, certain events within your story are going to like have bigger or smaller impacts on characters, and they will progress and they may also regress, because that's how people work. Uneven character development, like yes, some characters develop more than others. I don't know which way this guy means it, but like some characters have a lot of development, they grow a lot, they mature a lot, or they get better, or they get worse, like yeah, and then other characters stay kind of relatively about the same. But it makes sense, the characters who have the most growth I feel like are the ones who are younger, and also in like the more stressful situations. It's like yeah, they're being molded by their experiences, my guy. And like the people that don't tend to mature very much are like already mature, they're older characters, they're set in their ways. Do they have some changes of heart? Yes they do, occasionally, but a lot of the time like people can be very sure in themselves, set in their ways, single-minded, not willing to change. It's realistic. Like people do progress, they do evolve, they do change and grow and have like satisfying character arcs and satisfying character development, and it does happen at different speeds throughout the book, and it does happen at different speeds between different characters. But I think that's a good thing, because if everyone just progressed all at the same speed, there would literally never be any conflict between characters. Everyone would always be on the same page, always at the same time. Excuse me? I've just seen the next review, which says, the book was terrible, there was no central idea, things happened for no reason, and the author lacked a writing style. And they're also criticising him for writing in third person. This has to be a YA girly, I'm so sorry. Like why would you? I don't want any book that's written in first person. I don't want you to try and like shove me in their head if there's no good reason for that character to be telling me the story directly. Unless contextually I'm reading their journal or they're speaking it aloud to another character, that makes sense. Why are they narrating their thoughts aloud? This isn't Scrubs. Also, no central idea. The central idea is that it's a very basic one. You have two different groups of people and they're kind of fighting over the same land. It's like, have you heard of feudalism? Have you ever read any history textbook ever? I don't know what you mean by like there's no central idea. The central idea is these two different cultures disagree, they fight. Like that's a lot of what it is. Also, when they say things happening for no reason, I don't know what you mean by those things, because I feel like everything in this book, the author goes so in depth with like, especially like the culture of like their fictional race, and I feel like that does explain pretty much anybody's actions. Like it might seem weird to you as a human being, but these people aren't human beings, they're Anakim. They're like this other race, and they have this other, what to us is probably like a weird alien kind of culture. So something they do that makes perfect sense to them might seem weird to us, but like to me, reading like about a fictional culture, that's fantastic, because again, through the author's words, through the narration, it makes perfect sense to me. Like, I don't think anything's done for no reason. People can make mistakes. People do make mistakes. People make a lot of mistakes in this series. But, like, it's for a reason. You always know why everyone is doing what they're doing. That was one of my major praises for this series, that everyone's actions always make sense. They might not mesh up with the other characters, but these are two different people with two different opinions. So, like, of course they're not going to agree. Much like me and this reviewer. Like, no. There's literally only 11 one-star reviews, so like, oh, the dialogue was clunky and forced. They're not, I don't think the dialogue was clunky and forced. I feel like you can say that it has a particular, like, it's stylized when it's the Anakim speaking, but again, they're not human. Like, I feel like them having a different way of speaking, or like a different way of phrasing things, makes perfect sense. And also, it's not that weird. Then again, this review does start with blech, wretchedly awful, which, like, kind of how I feel reading these reviews. So, I'm gonna stop there, because I feel like if I keep going, I'm just gonna, like, increase my blood pressure, and then I'm just gonna have an even worse headache. Yeah, I feel like, look, some of these reviews, I can totally see where they're coming from. A lot of them just tend to be like, I don't like this kind of book. And this book is that kind of book, and to that I say, maybe you should have picked up a different book. I don't pick up contemporary romance because I know I won't like it. You know? If I pick up a contemporary romance and I don't like it, that's on me. So yeah, was it a good idea to do this? I don't know. I definitely don't feel like my opinions have changed or been swayed in the slightest for any of these books. And like, some of them I kind of get. Like some of it, like, I'll just say Nevernight. So I can make my peace with that, but like, otherwise, some of these reviewers were just, incorrect. So maybe this was fun for you, not me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and if you made it this far, leave me a little salt shaker emoji, because I feel like this has been a salty video. And I guess let me know in the comments either if you also rated any of these books like 1 star or you just hated them, or failing that, if there are any books that you guys really, really love that you just know that like the majority of people hate. Let me know your unpopular opinion. Maybe we can fight about it in the comments. So thank you guys so much for watching. That was it from me, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!